Carol Gilligan, social psychologist, founder of Ethics of Care and the Difference Feminism movement. Educational Psychology with Jeffrey Longing by Carrie Wilson. Early life. Carol Gilligan was born November 28, 1936 in New York City. She is the only child of lawyer Morgan Friedman and nursery school teacher Mabel Jimenez. She attended Walden Private School, a progressive private school on Manhattan's Upper West Side. She played piano and pursued a career in modern dance during graduate school. It appears her lifetime accomplishments are so much that there is very little information on her early life. Early professional life. Education. She attended Swarthmore College and received her Bachelor of Arts summa cum laude in English Literature in 1958. She went on to achieve her master's degree in clinical psychology from Radcliffe College in 1960. After achieving her master's, she studied at Harvard University and received her Ph.D. in social psychology in 1964. Early professional life. Career. Her first teaching position was at the University of Chicago in 1965. She started teaching at Harvard University in 1968. In 1982, she published her most famous work, In a Different Voice. She became a full-time professor in 1986 at Harvard University. In 1997, she became Harvard's first professor of gender studies, occupying the Patricia Abjad Graham Chair. In 1999, she returned to New York City as a visiting professor of New York University. She was named a New York University professor in 2002 with the School of Education and the School of Law. She is also a visiting professor at the University of Cambridge in the Center for Gender Studies. In 2003, she contributed the piece Sisterhood is Pleasurable, a Quiet Revolution to Psychology. In 2008, she published her first novel, Kyra. Career Awards. She received the University of Louisville Grawemeyer Award in 1992. She was named one of Time magazine's 25 most influential people in 1996. She received the 4th Annual Heinz Award in Human Condition in 1998. Personal life. In 1968, she married James Gilligan, a medical doctor in training at the time, an author and psychiatrist present day. Before returning back to Harvard to teach, she had 3 children, Jonathan, Tim, and Chris Gilligan. Her free spirit led her to a small career in modern dance. Her professional accomplishments are so tremendous there is very little information on her personal life, not even a single picture of her with her children. Carol and James Gilligan, pictured below. Ethics of care. Ethics of care, also called care ethics, feminist philosophical perspective that uses a relational and context-bound approach toward morality and decision-making. Carol Gilligan's Ethics of Care theory. Stage pre-conventional, I love me to I love you. Stage conventional, I love you more than me. Stage post-conventional, I love myself and you. In an interview, Gilligan was asked, how would you define ethics of care? Her response, as an ethic grounded in voice and relationships, in the importance of everyone having a voice, being listened to carefully in their own right and on their own terms, and heard with respect. And ethics of care directs our attention to the need for responsiveness in relationships, paying attention, listening, responding, and to the cost of losing connection with oneself or with others. Its logic is inductive, contextual, psychological, rather than deductive or mathematical. Ethics of care. In the different voice of women lies the truth of an ethic of care, the tie between relationship and responsibility, and the origins of aggression and the failure of connection. Carol Gilligan. Ethics of Care continued. Gilligan's stages of the ethics of care, levels and characteristics. Level 1. Orientation to individual survival. Individual survival. First transition. Selfishness to responsibility. Connection and responsibility to others. Level 2. Goodness as self-sacrifice. Reliance on others. Social acceptance. Second transition. Goodness to truth. Questioning comparative value of self versus others. Level 3. Morality of nonviolence. Heightened understanding of choice between own needs and care for others. Do not harm others or self. Differences of feminism movement. Feminism is one of the great liberation movements in human history. It is the movement to free democracy from patriarchy. In that sense, it's a movement to free everyone from gender binary and the hierarchy of patriarchy in the interest of women and men in the interest of love. It is a way of dealing with human conflicts other than through the use of force and the imposition of hierarchy. It seemed to me then to say, if you think you can explain the perpetuation of systemic patterns of injustice that is the repetition of a history of violence without a psychological or dynamic understanding. Psychology is integral to a feminism that is defined in those terms. Carol Gilligan. Difference feminism states that there are biological differences between men and women, therefore they are not meant to be treated equally. It states that although there are notable differences, no value judgment can be placed on either sex. It combats liberal feminism. It was made most famous by Carol Gilligan in her book, A Different Voice. Carol's theory. Gilligan proposed her theory of female moral development based on her idea of moral voices. There are two kinds of moral voices, that of the masculine and the feminine. The masculine voice is logical and individualistic, meaning that the emphasis in moral decisions is protecting the right of people and making sure justice is upheld. The feminine voice places more emphasis on protecting interpersonal relationships and taking care of other people. This voice focuses on the care perspective, which means focusing on the needs of the individual in order to make an ethical decision. Gilligan believes that androgyny, or integrating the masculine and the feminine, is the best way to realize one's potential as a human being. Carol's theory in education today. It is because of Carol Gilligan that educators consciously say or write he, she, and make gender-conscious choices for various areas of schooling. Influence. For Ethics of Care, in an interview, Gilligan notes Hannah Arendt, Simone Weil, Iris Murdoch, Suzanne Langer, Martha Nussbaum, Stanley Cavell, and David Hume as moral psychologists that influenced her theory. Sources also say Carol Gilligan was greatly influenced by Erik Erikson, whom she worked alongside at Harvard University. Difference of feminism movement. Gilligan served as Kohlberg's assistant as he developed his theory of moral development. Gilligan would go on to criticize Kohlberg's theory in her book, A Different Voice. Gilligan vs. Kohlberg. Gilligan criticized Kohlberg's theory because he only studied white privileged males. It was a narrow approach that is not universal. Non-Western cultures do not fit with Kohlberg's approach. Stages of moral development versus stages of the ethic of care. Kohlberg's stages of moral development consist 3 levels and 6 stages. Level 1, pre-conventional, morality. Stage 1, obedience and punishment orientation. Stage 2, individualism and exchange. Level 2, conventional morality. Stage 3, good interpersonal relationships. Stage 4, maintaining the social order. Level 3, post-conventional morality. Stage 5, social contract and individual rights. Stage 6, universal principles. Gilligan's stages of the ethic of care consist of 3 stages, pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional, that we discussed earlier in this PowerPoint. Gilligan vs. Kohlberg continued. Kohlberg said women's morality is less fully developed than men's. Gilligan stated Men have a more absolute perspective on morality than women, while girls tend to look at the situation and the relationships of the people involved before making a decision. Gilligan's view is that women are naturally more nurturing than men, and their actions reflect this, as men's actions are more instinctual. Where is she now? Carol Gilligan is now 80 years old. She lives in New York City. She serves as an honorary chair at Harvard University. She does seminars to promote gender rights and recently held one in Washington, D.C. According to sources, she is still teaching and has not yet retired. Final thoughts. It all goes back, of course, to Adam and Eve, a story which shows, among other things, that if you make a woman out of a man, you are bound to get into trouble. Carol Gilligan. It is because of Carol Gilligan that it is no longer socially acceptable to exclude women from studies and then make conclusions about human nature.